Okay, so today was a busy trading morning for me today. I don't normally take more than one trade per day. Um, Not to say I can't, right? My trading plan allows me to take max two trades and lose max 2% on a day. So my max drawdown on a day can only be 2%. Today, I took my first trade, and I'll go through it. It was a loss, lost 1% on it. And then my second trade was a win, a hit full take profit. Um, but I am still down $170 today, only because my second trade I decided I was only going to risk 0.5%. Um, Obviously in hindsight, it's like, oh, maybe I should have just risked that 1%. My trading plan allows me to lose 2%. So even if I risked that 1% and lost it, I wouldn't have been breaking any rules. I would have just hit my max drawdown for the day. But, in the moment, I wasn't feeling, your confidence is a little bit shaken after losing the first trade, and you want to, you start to second guess the direction your trade is going to go in. Maybe my draw on liquidity is not right. Maybe this PD array isn't going to hold, right? You start to second guess those types of things. So that's why I only risked 0.5%. I will say I'm proud of myself, the fact that I remained convicted. Even though I had that slight doubt in my mind, and that's why I only risked 0.5%, I stayed convicted in where I wanted to see price go. I thought my draw on liquidity was a very reasonable place for price to go. And yeah, I stayed convicted. I used to get um, very shaken up about when I would re-enter. I would be thinking to myself, is this revenge trading? Like, am I doing this wrong? Like, what am I, and you got to really be honest with yourself. You have to be honest with yourself. You're going to know if you're revenge trading, right? You're going to know if you're honest with yourself. If you're not honest with yourself, you realize after the fact that you were revenge trading, or at least you should. But you should be honest with yourself in the moment. And I was being honest with myself. When I re-entered for that second trade, I was still following every rule of my trading plan. And I was willing to take that second loss. But I was following every rule of my trading plan, so it wasn't revenge trading. If my model didn't show up a second time, and maybe on the first trade I got stopped out and then it ran to my draw on liquidity and then it came back down, and I was thinking, oh, we're still going to come up to that draw even though it already got tapped. Those are the times when you're revenge trading. My setup and my original plan was still there even though I got stopped out on the first trade. So, but without further ado, let me go over the trades so we can journal those. And yeah, so overall, it was a losing day. Very tiny loss of about $170. So that's less than, it's like 0.3% of my account, something like that. Anyways, right? What I wanted to see, higher time frame draw, because we were so close to it, just the previous weekly high. That's what I targeted on both my trades today as my final TP. That's what I wanted to see get hit. Again, because look how we're respecting that weekly bullish fair value gap, right? Daily didn't really give us much, right? I mean, obviously we have these lows underneath, but we're not near them, right? So it's not the most obvious draw on liquidity. The most obvious draw on liquidity was closer to us here. But I definitely, if we want to continue higher in the long term, I just don't like how we formed those lows. I know it looks much nicer on the weekly for us to just continue higher and reach all-time highs, but on the daily, I just don't like how we left those smooth lows like that. Not favorable, in my opinion, if we're going to continue higher. But go to the 4-hour here. The 4-hour showed us how we were inside and reacting off of a nice higher time frame PD array, the fair value gap here, and also, well, no, I was about to say this inversion fair value gap, but that's too far gone in my opinion. But we have this fair value gap here that I noticed and we were reacting off of. I needed that higher time frame PD array to be present for me to want to take a trade. And then on top of that, yes, we have these equal lows down here, but we're trending higher. And again, this liquidity is well within reach, these equal highs, and that's really where I wanted to see price draw this morning, and continue the trend higher. So we ended up, you can see where the sweep was on the hourly, but we'll go lower to really see the sweep. But you see how we respected an hourly fair value gap as well, and an hourly inversion fair value gap right here, right? So go to the 15-minute. So this is my first trade, and then I'll unhide my other trade that I took. But yeah, same premises, same idea for both trades, right? This morning, I just happened to enter too early on the first one, but I have no way of knowing that. I mean, in hindsight, I entered too early, but I followed my trading plan, so it could have just as easily gone up the first time I entered, right? So I don't regret entering on that first one at all. You know, it's part of the game. You lose some, you win some. But yeah, so here you see the sweep, right? I trade the 2022 model. So we have our sweep happening inside higher time frame PD array that I already mentioned, that 4-hour and the hourly fair value gap. So I'll go to the 5-minute just to show you, but I didn't enter. I entered both trades off the 1 minute. So after the sweep, right? This was the initial sweep here, right? We created this inversion fair value gap after breaking structure and going higher. We also created a fair value gap here. And the best part about this too was the fact that we hadn't come and taken this piece of liquidity out yet either. So we actually formed more equal highs here on the 1 minute. So that to me made it even easier for me to enter on the second trade because those weren't taken yet. But also it made it easier to enter the first trade as well. It was like, okay, we should end up coming to these highs, which we did, but after it took me out. So yeah, created those equal highs, created the inversion fair value gap, created the fair value gap. So I entered off the inversion fair value gap after we broke structure, and you know, the rest is history. It just ended up hitting my stop loss here, and then proceeding to distribute higher. And I'll show my second entry here. Get rid of this. That was my first trade, minus 1%. Second trade here. So second trade, same idea, right? We just came and swept the low one more time. That low happened to be my stop loss on the first trade, but we came and swept the low one more time. Sometimes price will do that. Ideally it doesn't, but price isn't always going to want to do exactly what you want, right? It's going to do its own thing. But yeah, so I entered off of this fair value gap right here that got formed. This one right here. Okay. After we broke structure, remember it's important. I need to see a break of structure. So we broke structure. Okay. Entered off of here. Now, do I love the way it consolidated near my entry for that long? Hell no. Okay. Hell no. And I'll be completely honest with you. I do have, I'm lenient with this rule in my trading plan, but I do have it there where if it consolidates for a decent amount of time near my entry, I will just close out the trade. Typically they won't go in my direction. If it doesn't move quickly in my direction, if it consolidates near entry, I usually will end up with a loss. So that is a rule that I don't necessarily implement 100% of the time. And I think I was a little bit less hesitant, or I should say a little bit more hesitant to follow that rule because I used only 0.5%. So I think using that 0.5% might have actually helped me, even though it wasn't enough to claw back our loss today. And that's why I said maybe I enter with 1%. Either way, you know, at the end of the day, today was a really good trading day. But let me just quickly, before I talk any further about that, I'll talk about the trade here. So I don't want to get sidetracked, right? Entered off that fair value gap here, consolidated for some time near my entry, then started to run. Once we closed above this fair value gap here on the 1 minute and made it an inversion fair value gap, I knew it's very likely that we're going to come to take this high at the very least. So I only had 3 mini contracts on this trade. Took 2 off here at these equal highs. set my stop loss to break even, and then let the last contract run to the previous weekly high, which was my final take profit. So that was the trade, okay? And that clawed back the majority of our losses today, but not all of them, okay? Again, still down $170 today. No big deal. The trading day in itself was a really good day. Like, genuinely, even if I would have lost both trades, it was a good trading day because I followed my plan through and through. Never strayed from it, and I'm very happy with the conviction I had in my draw on liquidity. You know, I was very set in stone, and look, not too set in stone where, look, if I lost the second trade, I was out, right? I'm not going to ever be, because then that's revenge trading. If I can only lose 2%, right? And I can only take max 2 trades a day. So even if I lost this and I was down 1.5%, and I'm not going to say to myself, oh, well, I'm not down 2% yet, you know, even though I'm only really supposed to take 2 trades per day, I'm not down that 2% yet. So let me take another 0.5% trade, right? No, that's a dog shit mentality. Okay. And that's when you're revenge trading. So for me, I didn't break any rules today. So that's a good day, right? And I had incredible conviction with where I wanted to see price go. And I was willing to enter again, even though I got stopped out off the first one, and I got rewarded for that. So I'm happy with the trading day. I really am. No trades tomorrow because of CPI. Friday I'll be back at the charts. So yeah.